wealthy dad knew that failure would make them stronger and smarter than before. It wasn't that they wanted to lose, but rather that they knew themselves and how to handle defeat. They would turn that defeat into victory, which is why they were winners, and others were losers. This gave them the courage to cross the line where others would retreat. This is why I like the people of Texas so much. They would say they had turned a major failure into an inspiration. At the same time, they also turned it into a tourist destination that generates millions of dollars. But the thing that feels most meaningful to me today is this: Texans don't bury their failures. Instead, they are inspired by failure. They turn their failures into inspirational slogans. Failure inspires Texans to be winners. But this formula isn't just for Texans, it's the formula of all winners. I've already said that my repeatedly falling off my bike was part of learning to ride. They find inspiration for more study. From this, they get better. For those who are winners on the inside, losing inspires them. For those who are losers on the inside, they lose courage after a defeat. I like to repeat this quote from John D. Rockefeller: "I always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity." And as a Japanese American, I can say this: many people say Pearl Harbor was America's mistake. I say it was a Japanese mistake. In the movie Tora, 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 a grim Japanese admiral tells his enthusiastic subordinates, "I fear we have awakened a sleeping giant." Remember Pearl Harbor became an inspirational slogan. It turned America's massive loss into a cause for victory. This massive defeat gave America strength, and America quickly emerged as a world power. Failure inspires winners, and failure breaks the morale of losers. This is the biggest secret of winners. It's the secret that losers don't know. The biggest secret of winners is that failure inspires them to win, so they have no fear of losing. I want to repeat Frank Tarkenton's quote: "Winning means not fearing to lose." People like Frank Tarkenton don't fear losing because they know that there is more joy in winning than in losing. They hate losing, so they know that if they let themselves lose from within, it will hurt even more. There is a big difference between hating to lose and being afraid to lose. Most people are so afraid of losing money that they lose. They go bankrupt over a duplex. Financially, they play life at a very safe and very small level. They buy big houses and big cars, but they don't make big investments. 90% of the American public struggles with money. The main reason is that they play to avoid losing, not to win. They go to their financial planner, accountant, or stockbroker and buy a balanced portfolio. Most have a lot of cash, FDs, low-interest bonds, mutual funds, and shares of some companies. This is a safe and wise portfolio, but it's not a winner's portfolio. It's the portfolio of a person who is playing to avoid losing. Don't get me wrong, it's probably a better portfolio than the rest of the 70% of the population. How fearful this is, and it's better to have a safe portfolio than to not have one at all. Anyway, this is the best portfolio for the person who loves security. But playing defensively and balancing your investment portfolio is not the way successful investors play. If you have less money and you want to get rich, you need to be concentrated, not balanced.
Look at any successful person, and you will see that at the beginning, they were not balanced. Balanced people don't get anywhere. They stay in one place. To improve, you first have to be a little unbalanced. If you don't believe me, walk for yourself. Thomas Edison was not balanced. He was concentrated. Bill Gates was not balanced. He was concentrated. Donald Trump is concentrated. George Soros is concentrated. George Patton did not spread his tanks over a huge area. He concentrated them in one place and blew away the weak parts of the German army. In the case of the Maginot Line, the French spread their military power, and you know what happened to them. If you want to get rich, you have to be concentrated. Don't do what the poor and middle class do, putting a few eggs in many baskets. Instead, put many eggs in a few baskets and be concentrated. Keep moving in one direction until you succeed. If you hate losing, then play defensively because it will take time. But if you have the dream of freedom in your mind and the desire to get out of the rat race, then ask yourself the first question: how do I react to failure? If failure inspires you to win, then you should probably go down this path, but only probably. If failure makes you weak or causes you to become like that spoiled child who looks for a lawyer to sue every time something goes wrong, then play it defensively. Keep your day job or buy bonds or mutual funds. Remember, although these are relatively safer, there are still risks in these financial instruments. I'm mentioning Texas and Frank Tarkenton because it's easy to fill the asset column. Losers are afraid of failing, and failure can turn losers into winners. Remember the Alamo. Getting past pessimism is the name "The Sky is Falling." The sky is falling. Most of us know the story of the little chicken who ran around warning of doom. We all know many such people. There's a little chicken inside each of us. I'm not smart. I'm not good enough. So-and-so is better than me. Our doubts paralyze us. We play the what-if game. What if the economy collapses right after I invest? What if I lose control and can't repay the money on time? What if things don't go according to my plan? Or our friends and loved ones can also remind us of our flaws. They often say, "Why do you think you can do this? If this idea was so good, why hasn't someone else done it by now? It will never work. You don't know what you're talking about." These arrows of doubt are often so sharp that we don't even start working. Fear settles in our minds. Sometimes we can't even sleep. We can't take a step forward, so we stick with the safe things. As a result, opportunities pass us by. We watch life pass us by and sit idly with our fearful hearts. We have all felt this at some point in our lives, some more than others.
Peter Lynch, the famous manager of the Fidelity Magellan Mutual Fund, used to call the "sky is falling" warnings noise, which we all hear. Noise is either generated inside our brains or comes from outside, often from friends, family, colleagues, and the media. Lynch recalls the 1950s, when the risk of nuclear war was so highly publicized in the newspapers that people started building bomb shelters and hoarding food and water. If they had invested that money intelligently in the stock market instead of building bomb shelters, they would probably be financially free today. When violence breaks out in a city, the sale of revolvers increases across the country. A person in Washington state dies from eating hamburger meat, after which the Arizona Department of Health orders all restaurants to thoroughly cook all kinds of meat. A pharmaceutical company shows people cold symptoms in a TV ad in February, which results in an increase in colds and an increase in the sale of that medicine. Most people are poor because in the world of investment, it's full of little chickens running around shouting, "The sky is falling, the sky is falling." And the words of the little chickens have more impact because a little chicken is hiding inside each of us. It often takes immense courage for rumors of destruction and words of despair to not create doubt and fear in your mind. But every intelligent investor knows that the worst-looking times are actually the best times to make money. When everyone else is too afraid to take a step, they pull the trigger and get rewarded. A few days ago, a friend named Richard came to Phoenix from Boston to meet Kim and me. He was very impressed with the work we had done in stocks and real estate. Real estate prices in Phoenix were in a slump. For 2 days, we showed him many real estate properties with great opportunities where, in our opinion, there was an excellent opportunity for cash flow and capital appreciation. Kim and I are not real estate agents. We are pure investors. After fixing a unit at a resort company, we called the agent who had sold that house to the resort that afternoon. The 2-bedroom house was priced at just $42,000, where such houses were selling for $65,000. He got a great deal. Excited, he bought it and went back to Boston. 2 weeks later, the agent called us to say that our friend had backed out. I quickly called to find out why. He just said that his neighbor had told him it was a bad deal because he was buying it at too high a price. I asked Richard if his neighbor was an investor. Richard denied this. When I asked Richard why he listened to his neighbor, he got defensive and just said he wanted to do more investigation. The real estate market in Phoenix turned, and a few years later, that small house started renting for $1,000 a month, $2,500 in the cold months. The price of the house had now increased to $95,000. Richard only had to make a $5,000 down payment, and his process of getting out of the rat race would have started. He hasn't done anything to this day. I wasn't surprised to see Richard back out. It's called buyer's remorse, and it affects all of us. The little chicken won, and the opportunity for freedom passed. Here's another example. I put a small part of my property in tax lien certificates instead of FDs. I earn 16% annually, which is definitely more than the bank's interest rate on FDs. The certificates are safer than real estate and are also protected by state law. And it's also better than most banks. They are safe because of the formula they are bought on. They just don't have liquidity, i.e. the convenience of selling instantly. So I consider them to be 2 to 7 year FDs. Whenever I tell someone how I keep my money, people tell me it's dangerous, especially when their own money is in FDs. They tell me why I shouldn't do this. When I ask them where they got this knowledge, they cite a friend or an investment magazine. They have never done this work, but they are telling the person who is doing the work what he should not do. I expect a minimum income of 16%, but people full of doubt are ready to accept much more profit than that. Doubt proves to be expensive. I think this doubt and pessimism are what keep most people poor and force them to play defensively. The real world is waiting for you to get rich. Only your doubts have kept you poor. As I said, getting out of the rat race is technically easy. It doesn't require much education, but because of their doubts, most people remain inactive and can't get out of the rat race. Wealthy Dad used to say, "Pessimists never win." Uncontrolled doubt and fear make people pessimists. Pessimists criticize, while winners analyze. Wealthy Dad made it clear that criticism closes the eyes, while analysis opens them. Analysis allows winners to see what they can't, which is why they also see opportunities that no one else can see. And the ability to see opportunities that other people can't see is the key to all kinds of success. For a person who wants financial freedom, real estate is a powerful investment vehicle. It is a unique investment vehicle. But whenever I mention the medium of real estate, I often hear this: "I don't want to fix toilets." Peter Lynch calls this noise. My rich father called it the pessimist's excuse. A person who criticizes and does not analyze. A person whose mind is clouded by doubt and fear, which is why he cannot open his eyes. When someone says, "I don't want to fix toilets," I feel like asking in return, "Why do you think this is my favorite job?" They are actually saying that toilets are more important to them than what they need. I talk about being free from the rat race, and their attention is focused on the toilet. This thought process is what keeps most people poor. They keep criticizing instead of analyzing. Wealthy Dad used to say, "The key to your success is hidden in, I don't want to do it." I also don't want to fix toilets, so I make a good effort to find a property manager who will handle the job of fixing toilets. Finding a great property manager to handle a house or apartment increases my cash flow. But more importantly, a great property manager allows me to buy a lot more real estate because I don't want to fix toilets. A good manager is the key to success in the real estate field. Finding a good manager is more important to me than finding good real estate. The best property managers are often given information about the best deals in real estate in advance, which makes them even more valuable. So whenever I see people focusing on their "I don't want to do that" and taking their focus away from what they want, I understand that there is a lot of noise in their brains. The little chicken has become dominant in their minds, yelling, "The sky is falling and the toilet is broken." So they avoid their don't wants, but they pay a big price for it. They will probably never get what they want in life. Instead of analyzing, the little chicken sitting inside them shuts down their brains. Rich Dad told me one way to deal with the little chicken: do what Colonel Sanders did.
At the age of 66, he lost his business and was living on a Social Security check. The amount was very small, so he started traveling all over America to sell his fried chicken recipe. He was told no 1,009 times before someone said yes, and later he became a millionaire at an age when most people want to quit work and relax. Rich Dad would say about Harlan Sanders, he was a brave and determined man. So whenever you are in doubt and feel a little afraid, do what Colonel Sanders did with his little chicken. He fried it. Laziness and greed. Busy people are often the most lazy. We have all heard the story of the businessman who works hard to earn money. He works hard to provide good money for his wife and children. He works a lot of overtime at the office and even brings office work home on weekends. One night when he comes home, he finds the house empty. His wife has left the house with the children. He knew that his relationship with his wife was weak, but instead of working to strengthen the relationship, he was busy at the office. When the family left, he became depressed and started neglecting his work, which resulted in him losing his job as well. Today, I often meet people who are so busy that they don't even care about their own wealth. And there are also people who are so busy that the reason behind both is the same. They are busy and they want to stay busy because they want to avoid something they don't want to face. No one needs to tell them this. Deep down in their hearts, they know it. In fact, if you remind them, they will get angry or annoyed. If they are not busy with their jobs or with their children, they are often busy watching TV, fishing, playing golf, or shopping. But deep down, they know they are avoiding facing something important. This is the most common form of laziness. Laziness by being busy. So what is the cure for laziness? The answer is a little greed. Many of us were taught during our upbringing that greed or desire is a bad thing. My mother would say, greedy people are bad. However, we all have a desire to have beautiful, new, or exciting things. So to keep that feeling of desire in check, parents often associate that desire with a sense of guilt. My mother's favorite phrase was, "You always think about yourself. Don't you know you have siblings too?" This was my father's favorite phrase. "What are you asking me to buy? Do you think we're made of money? Do you think money grows on trees? You know we are not rich." The words didn't affect me as much as the combination of anger and guilt behind them. In contrast, the guilt trip was, "I am sacrificing my life to buy this for you. I am buying this for you because my parents never bought it for me when I was a child. I have a neighbor who is poor, but he doesn't want to keep his car in his garage. The garage is full of his children's toys. Those spoiled children get what they want as soon as they want it. He says every day, I don't want them to feel a lack of anything. He hasn't saved anything for their college education or his own retirement, but his children have all the toys in the world. He recently got a new credit card in the mail and took his children on a trip to Las Vegas. He said with a great sense of sacrifice, I am doing this for the kids."
Rich Dad had forbidden these words, "I can't afford that." This is what I used to hear in my house. Instead, Rich Dad expected his children to say, "How can I afford that?" He believed that saying, "I can't afford it," shuts down your brain's doors. It doesn't need to think about anything else. On the other hand, saying, "How can I afford it?" opens the brain's doors and forces it to think and search. But most importantly, he felt that "I can't afford that" is a lie, and the human spirit knows this. The human spirit is very, very powerful. He would say that it knows it can do something. If your lazy brain says, "I can't afford it," then a war starts inside you. Your spirit gets angry, and your lazy brain has to defend its lie. The spirit yells, "Let's go to the gym and exercise." And the lazy brain says, "But I'm tired. I really worked hard today." Where the human spirit says, "I'm tired of being poor. Let's get rich." To this, the lazy brain says, "Rich people are greedy. Besides, there's a lot of trouble. It's not safe. There's a risk of losing money. I already work hard enough. I already have to work too much at the office. Look how much work I have to do tonight. I can't afford it. I can't afford that also produces sadness and helplessness, which can lead to disappointment and often depression. How can I afford it opens the door to possibilities, excitement, and dreams. So Rich Dad wasn't so concerned about what we wanted to buy if we understood that asking the question, how can I afford it, produces a more powerful brain and a more progressive spirit. So he might not have given anything to Mike. Instead, he would ask, how can you afford it? And this included college, the cost of which we paid ourselves. He wanted to teach us the process of achieving the goal, not the goal itself. In my understanding, the problem today is that millions and billions of people feel guilty about their desires or their greed. This is their old childhood upbringing. Although they want good things in life, most people have this old ingrained idea in their subconscious, I won't get this, or I can never afford this. When I decided to get out of the rat race, the question in my mind was, how can I get out of the rat race so I never have to work again? After that, the answers and solutions started coming to my brain by themselves. The most difficult part was to fight the beliefs of my real parents. We can't afford this. Stop thinking only about yourself. Why don't you think about others? And similar words that were used to suppress my greed and fill me with guilt. So how can you overcome laziness? Once again, the answer is a little greed. This is the radio station called WIIFM, which means, what's in it for me? People need to sit down and ask this question. What will life be like if I never have to work again? What will I do if I have all the money I need? Without this little greed, the desire for something good, there can be no progress. Progress in our world happens only because we desire a better life. New inventions are made only because we desire something better. We go to school and study hard for this reason because we want something better. So whenever you find yourself avoiding something that you think you should do, just ask yourself one question. What's in it for me? Be a little greedy. It is the best cure for laziness. Everything has a bad side, so too much greed is not good either. But just remember what Michael Douglas said in the movie Wall Street. Greed is good. Rich Dad would put it another way. Guilt is worse than greed because guilt deprives the body of its spirit. I think Eleanor Roosevelt said it best. Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. You'll be damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Overcoming bad habits. Our habits have more influence on our lives than our education. After watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan, a friend said, "I want a body like Schwarzenegger." Most of the companions nodded in agreement. Another friend said, "I've heard that he was actually very weak and skinny at one time." "Yes, I've heard that too," another one said. "I've heard about his habit that he goes to the gym almost every day." "Yes, and he looks like it too." The pessimist of the group said, "No, I bet he was born this way. Besides, forget about Arnold. Let's have a beer." This is an example of how habits control behavior. I remember once I asked Rich Dad about the habits of the rich. Instead of giving a direct answer, he explained to me with an example, as he always did. Rich Dad asked, "When does your father pay his bills?" "On the 1st of every month," I said. He asked, "Does he have any money left?" I said, "That's the main reason he is in financial trouble." Rich Dad said, "His habits are bad. Your father pays everyone else first. He pays himself last, and only if there's something left. Usually nothing is left." I said, "But the bills have to be paid, right? You're not saying that he should not pay his bills." "No, absolutely not," Rich Dad said. "I completely believe in paying bills on time. I just pay myself first, even before paying the government." "But what happens if you don't have enough money?" I asked. "What do you do then?" "Even then, I pay myself first, even if the money is less," he said. For me, my asset column is more important than the government's." "But," I said, "don't the government people come after you?" "Yes, if I don't pay them," Rich Dad said. "Look, I'm not saying don't pay the government. I'm just saying that I pay myself first, even if I have less money." I asked, "But how do you do it?" Rich Dad said, "It's not a question of how. The real question is why." "Okay, why?" "Motivation," Rich Dad said. "What do you think? If I don't pay, who will complain the loudest, me or my creditors?" "Your creditors will definitely scream louder than you," I answered, choosing the obvious option. "If you don't pay yourself, you won't say anything." So you see, the pressure to pay taxes and other creditors after paying myself is so great that I am forced to look for other sources of income. This pressure to make payments becomes my motivation. I have taken extra jobs, started many companies, bought and sold in the stock market, done all kinds of things just so that these people don't scream at me. I worked harder, was forced to think, and overall became more clever and agile in matters of money. If I had paid myself last, I would not have felt any pressure, but I would have remained poor. So this fear of the government or other creditors is what motivates you. Exactly, Rich Dad said. Look, government money collectors are very dominant, and so are money collectors in general. Most people are afraid of these dominant people. They pay their money, but don't keep it for themselves. Look, most people let these dominant money collectors throw sand in their faces. I used the fear of dominant creditors to make myself stronger. The rebellious person becomes weaker. Forcing oneself to think about how to create extra money is like a weightlifting exercise in the gym. The more I exercise my financial muscles, the stronger I become. Now I am not afraid of those dominant creditors. I liked what Rich Dad said, that if I pay myself first, I become financially, mentally, and economically stronger. Rich Dad nodded. And if I pay myself last, or not at all, I become weaker. So bosses, managers, tax collectors, bill collectors, and landlords will keep pushing me around all my life. Just because I don't have good money habits. Rich Dad nodded, like a weak 98-pound man.
Overcoming arrogance. Rich Dad often used to tell me, I earn money because of what I know. I lose money because of what I don't know. Whenever I have been arrogant, I have lost money. The reason is that when I am arrogant, I truly believe that what I don't know is not important. I have seen many people use arrogance to try to hide their ignorance. I have often seen this happen while discussing financial statements with accountants or other investors. They brag in the discussion and try to prove that their words are right. I understand that they have not the slightest knowledge about what they're talking about. They are not lying, but they are not telling the truth either. In the world of money, finance, and investment, there are many people who do not know what they're talking about. Most people in the money industry just parrot memorized phrases like a second-hand car salesman. When you know you are ignorant about a topic, start increasing your knowledge by finding an expert in that field or a book on that subject. Essentially, there are 5 main reasons why even financially educated people cannot generate a lot of cash flow. These are, first, fear, second, cynicism, third, laziness, fourth, bad habits, and fifth, arrogance. Let's discuss each of them in detail. Fear and cynicism. The difference is, how do you handle fear and loss? The main difference between a rich and a poor person was in handling fear. It's not bad to be afraid. One way to get out of it is to start early and take advantage of the power of compound interest. There is a huge difference between a person who starts saving at age 20 and one who starts at age 30. But what if you don't have much time to invest or you want to retire early? Rich Dad advised thinking like a Texan in this matter. Bet big, win big, lose big. Your attitude towards loss is what matters. When Texans win, they are proud, and when they lose, they brag. In Robert's life, victory has often come after defeat. He has not met any rich person who has not lost money, but he does not stand out of the game for fear of defeat. The defeat at the Alamo was a tragic military defeat, but Texans converted it into a slogan, "Remember the Alamo," so that it would motivate them for their great victory. Don't bury your losses like the Texans. Get motivated by them. Winners get inspiration from defeat. Losers break down in defeat. John D. Rockefeller once said, "I have always tried to turn every disaster into an opportunity." Even Pearl Harbor was turned into a profit after America's big defeat because it motivated the country to become a world power. Winners know that failure motivates victory. So why be afraid of failure when it can lead you to greatness? Understand that not being afraid of failure does not mean you cannot hate to fail. Most people play to avoid loss when they need to play to win. This is why so many people struggle financially. They may have a safe, intelligent, and balanced portfolio, but it is not a winning portfolio. They are playing to avoid losing. A balanced portfolio is not a bad thing, but it will not help you achieve a big win. Successful investors do not play the game this way. You have to be a little unbalanced at the beginning, but you have to focus. Put your eggs in a few baskets and focus completely on them. Building or increasing your wealth column does not require difficult math, but it definitely requires courage and the right attitude towards failure. Overcoming cynicism. Whether it is our own self-doubt or the doubts of other people, we often do not act because of that doubt. We play the game defensively. As a result, opportunities pass us by. It takes a lot of courage to not let your doubts and fears be excited by rumors, disappointment, and doomsday talk. But the intelligent investor knows that the worst-looking time is actually the best time to make money. When everyone else is too scared to act, they pull the trigger, and they get the reward. Robert gives an example of a friend who was about to buy an investment condo at a very good price, but backed out at the last moment when a neighbor told him it was a very bad deal. The neighbor was not an investor. If he had made this deal, his investment would have doubled, and he would have started getting out of the rat race. Robert is willing to accept a much smaller return from suspicious people for a small portion of his wealth. Doubt is expensive. Doubt and pessimism force most people to accept a return. Rich Dad liked to say, "Pessimists criticize, while winners analyze." Winners keep their eyes open and see opportunities that no one else has seen. Real estate is a powerful investment vehicle for anyone willing to achieve financial freedom. It is a unique investment vehicle, but whenever Robert mentions real estate as a medium, he often hears, "I don't want to fix toilets." They focus on the toilets, and for this reason, remain poor. Many people stay away from the stock market because they don't want to lose money, but they have deprived themselves from making money by closing their mind to that investment vehicle. Overcoming laziness. Being busy is one of the most common forms of laziness. So busy that one doesn't care about their wealth, their health, or their relationships. What is the cure? A little bit of greed. This may be difficult to hear because many of us were raised to believe that greed or desire is a bad thing. Instead of saying, "I can't afford that," change your mindset to, "How can I afford that?" This opens the brain and forces it to find solutions. "I can't afford that" is a lie. The human spirit knows that it can do anything. By saying you can't do something, you are creating a conflict between your spirit and your lazy brain. From "how can I afford that," the brain and spirit become stronger. When Robert decided to get out of the rat race, he asked, "How can I handle never having a job or business again?" His brain started providing solutions, but the hardest part was fighting against that old tradition that tried to create guilt to suppress such greed. Without that slight greed, that is, desire to achieve something good, there is no progress. Our world advances because we all desire a good life. New inventions happen because we desire something good. We go to school and study hard because we want something good. Excessive greed is bad, but a little greed can motivate you.
Overcoming bad habits. To be successful, you must build successful habits. Poor Dad always paid everyone else first and himself last, but he often had very little left. Rich Dad always paid himself first, even when he had little money. He knew that if he didn't pay the creditors and the government, they would cause trouble. This encouraged him to find another form of income. If he had paid himself last, he would not have felt this kind of productive pressure. Where to get the extra income to pay the creditors? Overcoming arrogance. Rich Dad said that every time he was arrogant, he lost money because he thought what he didn't know wasn't important. Many people use arrogance to hide their ignorance. Robert has seen in conversations with accountants and other investors that they try to make their point in the conversation, but after a little argument, it becomes clear that they don't know what they're talking about. Ignorance is not a bad thing if, in response to your ignorance, you find an expert in that field and educate yourself. The left hemisphere side. Choose to analyze instead of criticize. Pessimists criticize, but winners analyze and see the opportunities that others have missed. The right hemisphere side. Overcome old habits by creating new ones, like paying yourself first instead of last. The subconscious side. The fear of failure keeps most people out of the game. Instead, use failure as an inspiration for success, just as the Texans did with the memory of the Alamo. What was Robert saying? Now is the time to think. Ask yourself what Robert is saying in this example and why he says it. In this section, you don't have to agree or disagree with what Robert says. The goal is to understand what Robert is saying. Remember, this course is designed to be collaborative and supportive. Two brains are better than one. If you can't understand what Robert is saying, do not hesitate to ask for help understanding. Take the time to discuss each example until you understand it. The fundamental difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they manage fear. I have never met a golfer who has never lost a golf ball. I have not met lovers whose hearts have never been broken. And I have never met a rich person who has not lost money. They just knew who they were and how they would handle the loss. They used to turn defeat into victory. Texans don't bury their failures, they are motivated by them. They take their failures and turn them into inspiring slogans. When clouds of fear and doubt hover over our thoughts, we all become a little timid. Getting out of the rat race is technically easy. It doesn't require a lot of education, but doubt paralyzes most people. I can't afford it creates sadness, a helplessness that leads to frustration and often depression. How can I afford it opens the door to possibilities, excitement, and dreams. If I pay myself first, I'll be financially and mentally stronger. There are a lot of people in the world of money, finance, and investment who have no idea what they're talking about. Additional questions. Now that you understand the words spoken by Robert in this chapter, it's time to apply the stories mentioned in it to yourself and your life. Ask yourself the questions below and discuss them with your study partner. Be honest with yourself and your partner. If you don't like some of the answers you are giving, ask yourself if you're ready to change. Take on the challenge of changing your thoughts and mentality. Question 1. Have you ever felt the fear of failure in your life? Did you overcome that fear? How? Question 2. Rich Dad advised that we should have a Texan-like attitude. Win big, but if you lose big, brag about it and use it as an inspiring slogan. What is the biggest challenge for you in adopting this attitude? Does it thrill you or scare you? Question 3. How do you handle the critics in your life who discourage you from taking risks when you believe you have a good chance of winning? Question 4. Have you ever stayed away from a specific investment vehicle because of I can't? For example, I don't want to invest in real estate because I don't want to fix toilets. How can you react differently next time? Do you agree with the statement that a little greed is the answer to treating laziness? Why or why not? Has greed or desire motivated you in life? Do you pay yourself first or do you pay your bills first? If you pay yourself last, what steps can you take to change that? Have you ever lost an opportunity due to ego? What did you learn from it? Is there an area of financial knowledge where you are ignorant? What resources can you find to educate yourself on that? Terminology. Stop. Definition of the term. It would be nice if I could say that it was easy for me to collect assets, but it wasn't. How to get started. This question is often asked of me. In response, I tell them the thought process I go through every day. Actually, finding the best deals is easy. That's my promise.